Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday. Here we are. Oh, I'm getting my the Wi-Fi bad signal already. I hope I'm not too far behind.
It's a good start.
All right. Yeah, I know. Already.
You're getting recalled.
Yeah. So we got Matt Shapiro.
Hello.
Esquire. We got Tim Seavey, SDSU. Oh, man. And San Diego is going to be a big player in this discussion here. Like, we got multiple people in there. I am Jared Beacon Miller, your debate coach, professor of communications. We are talking about the recall this week, all right? Because in a couple weeks, it's about 2 weeks, right? Yeah, like the actual recall might be happening and stuff like that. So,
14th is the date. Be sure to vote.
What?
The 14th is the date. Be sure to vote.
Yeah,
before then,
14th. If
Before
you're
then.
in California,
Yeah.
you know,
Mail that thing in.
if you're not in California, don't do that. So,
Don't vote.
Yeah, like I said, it's irrelevant.
I mean, you could do like, I don't know, symbolic votes. That might be all right.
Yeah, encourage your friends to vote who are able to vote.
Multiple times.
That's what they want you to do.
What we're going to try to be doing from here on out is on the fourth week, we're going to be applying like debate to the real world. All right. So because we've had several or a couple of debates about the recall on television, we thought it was appropriate. And so anytime that there's, presidential debates or other political debates, it's fine. But anything that is happening in the real world that is associated with debate.
World.
Yeah, that's what we're happening on week 4. So most all the other weeks we're kind of like we're kind of keeping ourselves to the academic competitive aspect of debate, and in this one we're kind of applying it outside of that realm. All right. So here we go. We're talking about the recall, and it's always a good place to start with a little bit of background about the recall. Like, you could go with the long history, right?
The long form, social media form. Yeah, no. Basically, from what I understood and some preliminary research I did before this this podcast here, Article 2 of the California Constitution was approved by the voters of California in 1911. That article gave the power to recall. And Section 1 of Article 2, the purpose of the recall power: all political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit. They have the right to alter or reform it when the public good may require. That is the purpose of the recall. So that's a little bit of history from way, way, way back when. And I guess one other
recall, one, like how that one got started.
Yes.
I didn't know that there was this was like the 7th recall attempt on Newsom, I guess.
I heard that very recently.
Like just as soon as he started, it just becomes automatic.
Yeah, it becomes a tool. I mean, it's definitely just a procedural tool to try to get someone out of power. I mean, it's definitely what it is.
Like 1.3 million signatures, though. So the first 5 were unsuccessful. This one received like 1.7 million legit signatures.
And I hope I'm getting this at least in the ballpark. I think we got like 40 million people in California. So when you think about like the percentage of people that need to sign on to this, I'm like,
I heard they need to.
11% of people that voted for Newsom are now voting for the recall.
This is rough, and I know that everyone who actually will be debating this somewhere in a real round somewhere needs to be very thorough. But I think the basic gist of it was you need to acquire 12% of the voting base in 180 days or something like that. And if you can get that threshold, then there's some more steps after that where they can withdraw some signatures and they can do things. There's some, I guess, just political bureaucracy that has to happen. But that is the threshold, is getting 12% of the voting population in, I think, 180 days. That's and anyone can do it. That's what's so funny about it. Like the procedure to do it is just on, the Secretary of State website. Or the elections.cdn.sos. Yeah, I think it's a Secretary of State site, but you can just look up the recall procedures, and you yourself could start the revolution tomorrow if you'd like to.
So a lot of the previous ones were about what was it like? We don't like the immigration policies that he's doing, or we didn't like the healthcare policies that he was doing. The first question on the recall is, should the recall happen? And I think it's important to kind of just talk about that before you talk about who else is running, right? And so the question, should you vote for the recall? And you're looking at like the question I have that I don't seem to see an answer for is kind of like, what happened that could not be solved with just an election? The election is about a year away. Is it less than a year after
less
this?
than a year away. So the regular election is 2022.
Yeah.
So even if someone does replace Newsom, the election still happens. It does not start their term over. They don't get a brand new 4-year term. So if someone even replaces him, that person's in office for a handful of months before there's another election.
Yeah.
So
and just one more piece of background, and we're going to get away from this, but the only other time this has happened for an acting governor, for all those of you who don't know, I believe it's 2003, Gray Davis, who was a Democrat, was the governor who had just begun a term. It was in, I think, his first year or so, and they recalled him. And they discuss how, or at least I've heard and I've read a little bit about how, the voter, the situation in California at that time, there was crisis, there was blackouts, there was things happening that kind of made him into a villain because he was the one in control at the time. So it kind of created ground or fertile soil for someone to be recalled. And I have heard comparisons to that and Newsom today. And, one thing I guess, that we could discuss today is the strength of the likeliness, because, we can compare, I think, Jared, what you're saying, what did he do wrong that justifies or warrants this act? The purpose, like I read in the beginning, how it says, for the public good may require a recall. So what does that mean? I mean, can we imagine a world where you think a recall would be completely necessary? Maybe we could start there as a baseline for, there is a purpose. And if you can't find a purpose, then hey, maybe we should just get rid of the recall.
But yeah, I think the one thing that's kind of irking me is it seems like the major tipping point was his hypocrisy.
There's elements of his just character, right? I think we're talking,
state of emergency, and then all right, everyone, state of emergency, we got to stay indoors, and then he didn't follow his own sort of edict.
And just to be very explicit with anyone who doesn't know, Gavin Newsom is the governor, and he's been telling everyone to stay inside during coronavirus. And months ago, at this point, I believe he went out to dinner, or he was photographed in a restaurant. Essentially, he's being a hypocrite because he's telling everyone you need to stay inside and be careful, but he's out at a restaurant. So that is a character issue more than, everyone can draw whatever lines you want. In my mind, right here, in my opinion now, it's kind of more of that's a character flaw. People are, which is justifiable grounds to be recalled in a political setting. I mean, your whole power is based on what the people.
Yeah, but being a hypocrite doesn't put anyone in danger. You know what I mean? It's not it's that's a great reason to vote him out.
Well, we can argue the merits of, how heavy you could argue that. I agree with you and I could disagree with you. So let's just start with that, right? I know what you're saying. It seems like a trivial thing, you know what I mean? But
it's the story that sticks the most. It's that during everything being locked down, during most restaurants losing their spaces, tons and tons of people out of work, he opened up the French Laundry, not just any restaurant. He opened up the French Laundry for him and his closest cronies to have dinner on his birthday, which was like every person that's hurting and is like waiting for the next stimulus check to come out and like trying to stretch things like, and then the person that locked it all up is at dinner at the French Laundry. So like that was the like really, really ugly black eye.
It's essentially the same story in a sense, you know, to some degree of the Ted Cruz going to Mexico for the weekend or whatever during the rolling freeze outs or whatever that was. I mean, It's the same type of sentiment. It's maybe, you know, we can argue the egregiousness, but it's something like that. It's similar vein of just hypocrisy. They're telling everyone to hunker down and be careful, and then. But, you know, on the same note, as a human being who was walking around and trying to stay inside as best I could, I maybe went to a restaurant or at least tried to eat food out of a wrapper at some point. And I don't know if I could see it where Jared's making the point that it's trivial. I mean, it's like the guy has a successful guy. He has some money. He's a governor. He's a powerful guy. He wants to celebrate his birthday. He made it happen or whatever. Someone made it happen.
With people like being like, dude, I'm never voting for that guy again. I'm like, character counts. You know what I mean? It matters in stuff like this. But that's
it does. Listen to him.
That's why we got elections. That's why we got term limits and stuff like that. And so those are the things that take care of stuff like that. But that act of hypocrisy didn't endanger Californians.
You're right. And I think what you could do is, I'm not arguing for or against. My personal feelings aren't, you know, relevant here. I just kind of want to make the point where, you know, you could make a patchwork quilt of multiple failures. Maybe some of them were policy. Tim maybe has some examples, hopefully. I don't know. But
here's what.
I mean, just
wildfire, housing crisis, homelessness, water management, education. Like those are like the big ones that pretty much every candidate is running on. The thing is, their arguments are no different from regular election cycle arguments. So I'm a little bit with Jared of like, what is the brink? Like, what is the situation that makes a recall specifically? Why is it a recall?
That's
a great
pull out and run.
I want to tell you something really funny, really quick. And I'm in law school, I should say. You know, back now, thank God, back in the day. There's different kinds of, like, you know, power, right? There's the courts have power, and the president has power, and the people's power, like the political power, right, of the people to make changes like this one. Okay, there is no. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm sure Chemerinsky, who's a very famous constitutional law professor out there, could tell me otherwise. But like, there is. I don't think there's a standard for something like that. It's like, oh, the standard is the majority voted, so there you go, and that's what the people want. So
but this is a discussion about, like, people are going to be making a decision. Recall, yes or no.
And I guess where this fits. This doesn't go to the court. This doesn't go to the court, right? Like, this isn't a court decision. This is not a legislative body decision. The only people who can make this decision is the entire voting population of California, which, through these rules, I mean, they're allowed to do that. And
one of the ways, Jared, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say was that you can still say that this recall is stupid, vote against the recall, and then once the election comes around and say, I don't like this guy, he's a jerk, I'm voting against him.
Which is an exercise of political power as well, by the way. Like those are the same.
All of it is. We certainly have a lot more power to change this particular structure than we maybe have at the federal level. But in this circumstance, what we're talking about is kind of the yes or no. You can say, yes, I want to recall Gavin Newsom because I think he's done awful things and all of these candidates would be better.
For any reason. I mean, really.
So it's kind of a solvency question, right?
Yeah.
What problem are you solving for 8 months' time? Right. Or until January. So it's technically January 2nd because the whole
imminent doom, nuclear war. I mean, catastrophic climate change failure.
Like, if we bring someone else in, what problem do they solve by being governor for a few months that would potentially be made worse or, additional harm? So, like, what are the harms? Because there's a long list of harms and bad things that are happening in California right now that if Gavin Newsom stays in office, assumedly they would continue and wouldn't change. What is that compared to what a new politician coming in with a few months of capability in that office seat, what can they do to mitigate or reverse those problems? I think that's
I like
the real
what you said. I like what you brought up the brink beforehand, because I don't think we talk about that enough. The idea of a brink is a debate concept in which you can have disadvantages that are what are called linear, that the longer that they exist, like you start getting closer and closer to bad things. Okay. But the concept of a brink is like the point of no return. Once you pass a certain threshold, bad things are like irreversible, and we need to take some sort of action. And that's what I'm looking for, and I can't find, like, what was the trigger that happened that we can't.
And that's I'm just there. You will never find that answer. I don't think. I mean,
well, I can
anything
imagine
you could.
a world. I can imagine a world. It's like, listen, he's trying to influence the next election through, like, you know, like if he's trying to get like international intervention in the election or something like that. I'm like, yeah, like he's not playing fair, and he's going to try to like seize power unfairly. And so I'm like, the recall time, right? But it's like,
if a governor was running the biggest sex traffic ring of all time,
right,
I can imagine then
that.
Maybe everyone would agree, like, very quickly. I'm trying. We were doing that exercise earlier. Like, that might be something that if that came out, it'd be like, yeah, we're all in agreement. You know what I mean? We're not fighting here. So
I would even wager to say the second biggest. That's still a reason to get him out. You know, it doesn't even have to be the biggest. That's a bad thing to do. It seems so when they were doing like the
lack of respect. That's what hurt the most.
The two issues that seem to be the most pressing, right? Like the most timely, were access to water, because like the reservoirs are currently like super dry.
California problems right now. Yeah.
But that's like in terms of immediacy of impacts, right? Because like, you know, climate change and policies of like what green policies we're passing, theoretically those have, while they are continually growing, those have the longest impact time frame compared to like water access today. And so it's water, and the other one is fire. So like the fires that are burning right now,
ironically enough,
really, really, really bad, right? But the thing is that the other candidates, while the interviewer was trying to question them about like, okay, what are you doing on day one? Like, what are you doing to solve this problem? Because therein lies some immediacy, right? Like
sweeping up the forest.
Had some massive swaths of water that he like has his finger over the like release water button and just isn't doing it. And a new person could come in and press that button. Okay, amazing. Like there's a good justification to get him out and get someone else in. And all of them are like, immediately, first thing, day one, we're building more reservoirs. And the commentary was, he was like, okay, that sounds nice, but reservoirs take years and years to build, and the change things take years. What are you doing right away? And he said, day one, we're starting construction. Like, all right, missed the point there. And the same thing seems to go for fire. It's not such that like there is an immediate issue.
Wildfires that burn around here and burn houses down, kill people.
Rake the forests right this minute. It stopped all the fires. Like the fire department is doing their darndest, and there's nothing like Gavin Newsom is or is not doing that impacts what the fire department or what like the forestry service is doing right now. So all of it is like in future years, we will do better land management to prevent these fires. So it seems like all of the alternatives are still longer term solutions, such that an election of a normal circus, like circus, maybe Freudian slip, of a normal like tenure makes sense. Like that would be the normal time that we should discuss these like medium to long term solutions. But I didn't hear any like literally instant solutions besides Paffrath. He wants to declare 4 states of emergency immediately. So like upon day one, declare state of emergency.
He's Mr. Immediacy. He's like he went crazy with the "I will change everything tomorrow" philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah, which like at least you're speaking to the thing of like, why should you be replacing someone and only have a few months to do something about it? Like, well, that's the way that you can get stuff done really, really fast, is literally declaring states of emergency across the board. And then you have emergency powers as a governor, so that you can basically like with the stroke of a pen pass sweeping policies immediately.
All right, fair enough. At least he's doing that work. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about how the recall works. If the recall happens, how does the outcome get decided? And I was kind of surprised at how this works. So there's a couple of questions on the ballot, which is the number one is, do you want the recall to happen? And secondly, who do you want to replace them? So the thing is, if more than 50% say yes, recall, then whoever gets the most votes, doesn't matter if they get a majority, if they just have a plurality, they win. So somebody could get like 15%.
And there's a lot of names on there. I heard the Gray Davis one had
that's the thing,
115
they're getting
names.
split up. Yeah.
I heard the 2003 one had 115 names. This one, I mean, just from my quick analysis, I bet you there was 40 names, 30 names on there.
Yeah, I think there's like between 40 and 50.
So it's a shotgun spread. Like it's not.
Right.
I mean, I didn't. I hate to say it. I didn't recognize really anyone on there, or I'm not really too up on local politics. Like
I was on that list, man. You didn't.
You were not on that list. I would have voted for you. Why weren't you on that list?
But
that's the real question.
Happens, like the way that a decision is reached is
Gary Coleman was on the last one.
It astounds me that you could have like you could get elected governor with like 12% of the popular vote. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like and let alone
that's
the fact that
the trigger. That's the triggering.
Yeah, you're probably going to have very low numbers of voting in the first place because this is a weird ass special election in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's not like it's happening during a presidential election or anything like that. It's like
50% also means 50% of the people who vote. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like that's where it's so critical, where these numbers change constantly. Like the 12% number is 12% of the voting population.
It's not 12%.
The people who voted, and then
you're probably going to have less than half the people vote. So when you're talking 12%, that means like you're looking at like 5% of the population.
But you need 50% of the voters who submit ballots before the 14th by mail. 50% of however many people vote. If they get the 50, then it's a go. Then the recall occurs.
Yeah. So it's
and that number is yet to be determined. That could be 50. Who knows how many that is? I mean, it will be likely millions of people, but vote.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm not a big fan of any politician, but having the possibility of less than 10% of an overall population deciding who's going to be in charge, like just like
what's funny is
borrow.
I did think the same. I do still think the same. But I do like how I'm pretty sure. I'll double check if there's anything wrong with what I'm saying. I'll double check. But there's a time frame. It's not just 12%. It's 12% in 180 days. Maybe it was 165, something like that.
No, I'm talking about voting. I'm talking about like on September 14th, when they submit ballots, you could have less than 5% of all Californians deciding who the governor is.
No, that's what I was saying. You could have 50 people. You could have just us three who voted and no one else voted, and whoever we pick wins.
Yeah.
Okay.
So vote.
So let's talk about a few of the candidates, a few of the alternatives. All right. So just real quick, let me throw this up here real quick. I think this is a good idea from Tim. There we go. Yeah, put it up there. All right. So you register to vote, get your vote out. If you're a Californian, go for it. I think most people here are Californian. All right. So
to Jared's concern of it's a very small voting population, contribute to that voting population to make it less scary.
Yeah.
Your vote matters a whole lot. There's no electoral college stepping in the way. There's no swing states. There's no gerrymandering silliness in the scheme of it. It is your vote really is important on this kind of thing.
It weighs a lot in the final result because I guarantee you there's going to be a very low turnout for this. Only the most like venomous people are going to be voting. You know what I mean? It's just the people that are diehards are definitely going to be voting.
I voted.
So, anyways, let's talk about a few of the leading candidates. Number one, leading the pack, apparently, is Larry Elder.
Is the liquid human from Terminator 2. Believe it or not, that's the guy. He's running for governor. I think he's the front runner. And if he wins, we'll see what happens. Could be the end of the world.
Back the other person that was elected by recall, the governor, to bring down
Skylink. Yeah.
Man. Larry Elder.
It reminded me when you were like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm like, they sent a Terminator to the last one of these. So I don't know. Be careful what you say. It seems like a lot can happen.
Yeah. And so the thing about Larry Elder is that now he's becoming the face of the opposition, right? He's like, because he's the front runner now. Newsom gets to use him as the scarecrow for his listen, if you vote for the recall, this is going to replace me. And he's saying things like he wants to recall. He wants to eliminate the minimum wage, laws. He's got some, man. The thing about being a shock jock, like when your job is to say things that offend people, when you run for politics,
it doesn't offend all people. Some people like it.
Up.
People are going to remember.
That's how he makes money, is by saying offensive stuff.
Well, what's funny about this is, like we said, it's a scatter shot. There's so many people. So if someone has a lot of, Arnold Schwarzenegger won the last one, right? Like, and to some degree, I mean, he was probably the most famous, name recognizable person on there, and I'm sure he had a platform, and I'm sure the more people figured out what was going on. But what's so funny is, I mean, so the numbers we're talking about is 50% can take the recall to occur. But then if the 50% of those people who voted that way voted for different people after the fact, then someone on the other political party technically could still win because of a more unified vote, if that makes sense.
An important point that I read in a few different places that I think we really, really should make is, even if you vote no, still vote on the second question, because your vote on the second question will still count. So even if you vote no and you do not want the recall to happen, they will still count your vote for, if the recall happens, who would you prefer to be in office? Yeah. So definitely vote on both questions. Don't just say, like, assume that the second question is if yes, then this question. They both count. So even for those people that are voting yes because they are really, really on board with, like, Caitlyn Jenner getting it or something, odds are their candidate is not likely to get it. Like, that's to your point of it being scattershot.
I've also been told don't put Gavin Newsom in there.
Yeah, right. He's not allowed. Like, if he gets recalled, he's not allowed to serve.
Yeah, that's so now you know.
Don't do that stuff.
So Gary Eller has a whole. So he's currently 10 points ahead in the polls, according to 538's like aggregate of the most recent. So being the front runner, like, he's certainly getting the most, direct under fire. And from what I was reading, like, far and away more money has been raised on the opponent side than has been raised on the supporter side for the recall. So people are saying don't recall has raised almost $60 million, compared to the people that are in support of the recall has raised roughly $8 million. So it's a pretty sizable gap. I'm surprised to hear. But if you've listened to the radio at all in California as of late, they've really pinned it as voting for the recall is voting for Trump and all of the, like, most extreme right-wing policies. That's really just how they've lined it up. It's like you've got Gavin Newsom, and then you've got anti-vax, anti-mask, no minimum wage, and pro-Trump. Like, that's.
It makes sense that these, I don't want to use fringe, the more far right, to the sides of either side have a better chance of winning in a recall, obviously, right? Because they don't need to win the masses. Like we've been talking about here, it's almost a crapshoot who could win it. I think
that's an interesting comparison to what happened last time when Arnold Schwarzenegger won. I think that him being the front runner might have actually made the recall more palatable, because they're like, if we don't have this governor, we're going to get Arnold Schwarzenegger. I could deal with that. Like, versus this one, I wonder how that's going to affect things. It's like I think the front runner might affect the popularity of recall a lot.
This may also lend to what you were talking about earlier. I'm not trying to go back too hard, but you were saying how the issues that Newsom is facing is more trivial, right? Whereas in Gray Davis's case, it was more of blackouts happening constantly through your state. The governor, you would imagine, has executive power, like Tim was saying. He can have all these, emergency contingencies he could put forth, or she could put forth, and he didn't. And there was all these problems that seemed to be his fault. Where, we could argue what failures Tim was talking about. He had 5 of them rapid fired out really quick. Probably didn't get much time to talk about them. But whether those things,
I think, is legit.
Whether those things are justifiable, I mean, or how they compare. Along with your palatability of Arnold Schwarzenegger argument. I really like that one too, Jared.
Yeah. Well, because, he was like a moderate, you know what I mean? It's like, he's just, he didn't say anything.
He's a Terminator, man.
Yeah. But let's go. Okay, the next two I'm going to put a group together. We've got John Cox, and it's Kevin. Is it Falconer or Faulkner?
Yeah, Faulkner.
All right.
So
and the reason I'm lumping them together is because both of them are from San Diego. And I bet you got a few things to say, Tim, on that, huh?
You got San Diego State University alumni, former mayor of San Diego, Kevin Faulconer. Back in the day, I did vote for him. His like big stance was that like homelessness was like kind of top of his docket. This is obviously well before like COVID era of things. And so his big position on the subject was that he became the only major city mayor that has reduced homelessness by 12%, while the rest of California has increased over the past years. So like that's
promising.
Tangible numbers to be able to say like, hey, look, we actually did a thing. Like we've made this significant problem for the state better. And they did it in a very, very big city. So that was, somewhat appealing. Like there were certainly things that Faulconer did that like anytime that you're running a really big city, things are not going to go your way. Like it's when your city is bigger than, some like state populations, it's not going to go super smoothly. So he and Cox are both Republicans. There actually are Democrats that are also running in this. So it's not necessarily just like fringe candidates.
Another Kevin
that are competing on it.
And not all Republicans are fringe, but I know what you're saying.
Go ahead, Tim.
I don't actually know a whole ton about Cox though. So Faulconer, I know a little bit more of really.
What do you know about Tim?
Policies on like more housing.
The one thing I know about Cox, I could tell you about this. He had like a bear at one of his political rallies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I forget.
Oh, that's that guy. I saw a video of a guy in like a Canadian tuxedo with a black bear behind him, chained up to a timber log or something like that.
I mean, all I could think of is what's that Will Ferrell basketball movie? The
Old
where
School?
He fights a bear. Oh my god.
Old
I'm
School?
like, oh my god, like he's really trying to
The Revenant
for support. What? Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, unpopular opinion. Leo should have won Best Actor for longest bear attack for that year.
He did win.
He did. That was the year he won.
I know, but he didn't get it for that category.
No, for that category.
That was the subtext.
Right.
Maybe he did win it for that category. Think about
over
it.
time, but let's talk about the top four. So there's another Kevin, and we had a comment from good old.
Hello, Josh.
Yeah, from Kevin P. Let me see here. Sorry,
Kevin Paffrath is a YouTube star.
Yeah.
This is where I took a little bit of issues. He's a YouTube star because he's a real estate investor, like moved to California, like works at, small jobs and then put himself through school and through UCLA and bought a house and then started investing in commercial real estate and is like a self-made millionaire off of investing, not commercial, in residential real estate, off of like real estate investment. And his entire platform is that California has a housing crisis, says the real estate millionaire investor. Do real estate investors want to make housing cheaper or more expensive? I found it to be a major conflict, and his solution to the problem was that it is there's too much bureaucracy in the development of houses. It takes almost a year or longer to get permits to build houses. So he would guarantee that he would offer a 5% increase in tax to offer a 1 week turnaround time on approval of housing development.
Hey, let's go on Wix tricks.
That 5% tax would go towards funding schools. So that's like one of his emergency things, which is insane. Like to have like a week-long approval process to develop new homes. Now, granted, there's like a need for it, but also then you've got like environmental concerns and like local and structural and like just infrastructural concerns to housing development that would be turned around in a week. And that seems to be like a pretty solid real estate investor's solution to a problem. Not let's make it more affordable. Let's just build more houses so that like real estate investors can make more money. Like that seemed like a conflict of interest.
I'm sure it's one of those things where for every instance that it like you're right, like the environment, some special condition needs to be accounted for. There's some other place where like it's just
it's obscenely slow. Absolutely.
So
right.
it's maybe an efficiency argument and something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, and he's saying it's because it's all local municipalities that get to make permitting decisions. So if you're trying to build a house in Laguna Beach, you got to jump through more hoops. And if you're trying to build one in Riverside or something, right? So like, I think that there's some legitimacy to like localities have a better understanding of their area than just a statewide board. And he wants to have a single statewide board. So I get it that there's some efficiency problem, but I don't think that just build more houses is the solution to greater access. I think that gives real estate developers access to buy more property.
When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It doesn't really help the people that need housing the most just to build more necessarily. Like, yes, it's supply and demand, but there are much bigger, like worse problems
Fish to fry.
namely real estate developers.
Yeah,
Or
and, like,
investors rather, not developers.
I mean,
investors.
going back to the water issue, like the more land that you develop, the
Like
larger
the stuff
the
that's made 70% of your body. Yeah, that stuff.
yeah. I mean, like the more land that you develop, the more like water demands there are on that area as well. You know what I mean? And so like trying to fix the housing.
Although I've
problem
also heard
that
California
way
should be very
might actually-
proud.
hold on. For trying to fix the housing problem that way might actually make the water problem worse. You know, like so.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he's made efficiency arguments around water too, of like we have to be building more reservoirs and stuff. Like these are not in a vacuum incorrect, but is it actually hitting the target of what you're trying to solve? When he similarly is like, so one of the 4 states of emergency at like 5%, 1 week turnaround tax is supposed to fund this educational program that he's got. That's like a trade school / college / high school / finance school, all like wrapped into one that he wants to give like free access and stuff to. It's like, these are neat ideas, but should all of these be executed using literally emergency powers on day one of like being into office? And like, do they all actually interact in the way that makes sense? I think it almost feels like I'm only going to be in office 6 months, so here's every snowball that I've got all thrown at once kind of an approach, which I think every candidate kind of has to understand or has to apply, because they have to acknowledge they're not going to be in office long enough to really see through significant policy changes.
yeah, I don't know. Like maybe they set up an opportunity for re-election if they do a good job. But how do you determine if somebody does a good job in 8 months? You know what I mean? It's like, how do you? I don't know.
A voting public.
Yeah.
I think they're all trying to fight for that exact thing. Is like, yes, you do actually get an opportunity for re-election if in the 2022. But they're all like, well, just give me a shot. I'll show you what I can do in 8 months, whether or not that you can actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's our episode for the California recall, everyone. We tried to include as many stuff as possible. Join us next week when we talk about some other stuff. Here we go. A couple last comments. All right. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, there's going to be no cooperative with okay, I'm trying to work through the grammar on this one. All right, there's going to be no more cooperation with a Democrat. Oh, there's going to be more cooperation with a Democrat, because Kevin P is like the only leading Democrat.
Thank you, Witrix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's like the only leading Democrat amongst the alternatives in this recall. So that's the argument. Okay. So you know what? Let me just throw out this one link one more time. It's all in your chat. Okay. Remember, register to vote. Get on out there and make the decision on whether or not the recall is something that needs to happen. And then also vote for anyone who's on the alternative. Even if you say no to the recall, you can vote for an alternative. That's fine. Yeah, make sure you're choosing someone that is reliable, that can do a job for 8 months.
8 months.
All right. So, all right, everyone. We got ourselves Matt Shapiro, Tim Seavey, Jared Kubika Miller. We are DebateSensei. We will see you next week. Okay. Adios.
Thank you.